The 26th session of the Senate in the second regular session of the 16th Congress is hereby called to order. Senator Sonny Angara will lead the chamber in prayer.
The Father, Son, Holy Spirit. O mapagmahal na Diyos, ngayong araw ay muli niyong pinagpala kaming mamamayan at ang aming bayan. Malugod namin kayong pinasasalamatan kasabay ng aming pagsamba sa inyong dakilang pangalan at kaluwalhatian. Maraming salamat sa mga biyaya at pag-asang inyong kaloob sa amin. Sa pagkakataong makasama ng buo, kontento at masaya ang aming mga pamilya. Sa paggabay sa mararangal na tagapagtaguyod ng aming bayan tulad ng mga obrero, pesante, pribadong empleyado, at mga opisyal na manggagawa sa gobyerno. Father, you are merciful, generous, and abounding in love, and so we have the courage to pray for unity and cooperation among us, for peace and prosperity in our land. We have the courage to ask for your wisdom and guidance as we go through the process of crafting legislation that will benefit our beloved country and our fellow Filipinos. Be with us today, Lord, and guard our hearts and minds, that we may always seek and speak the truth, that we may always promote the rights of the weak, the oppressed, and the marginalized. Amen.
Amen. The Mandaluyong City Hall Employees Choir will lead the chamber in the singing of the Philippine National Anthem, after which they will render a song, Ti Ayat, Ti Mesa Nga Ubing. The Secretary will call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senators Angara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Osmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
15 senators are present. The chair declares the presence of the quorum. Majority Leader.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Mr. President, with the consent of the Senate, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journal of the 25th session, September 24, 2014, and consider the same as approved.
Is it the 24th or is it the draft says 25th, session number 25?
25th.
25th. It's a 25th session.
Yes. 25th session on September 24.
That's correct, sir. All right. So any objection? Hearing none, the reading of the journal of session number 25 on September 24, 2014 is dispensed with and the same is hereby approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move to consider on third reading Senate Bill number 2042 under Committee Report number 8. This is the legislative bill on the chemical weapons prohibition, Mr. President.
Consideration of the measure on third reading is in order.
Mr. President, with the permission of the body, may we request the Secretary to read only the title of the bill without prejudice to inserting into the Senate Journal and record the whole text thereof.
The Secretary will do so.
Senate Bill number 2042, an act prohibiting the development, production, stockpiling, use of chemical weapons, and providing for their destruction and providing penalties therefore and for other purposes.
Mr. President, copies of this measure, as approved on second reading, have been distributed to the members of the Senate last September 30, thereby complying with the 3-day rule found under Section 26, Paragraph 2, Article 6 of the 1987 Constitution. I thus move for a roll call vote, Mr. President.
The Secretary will conduct the roll call vote.
Roll call of members, the Honorable Senator Sangara, Aquino, Binay, Cayetano Alan Peter Compañero S., Cayetano Pia S., Defensor Santiago, Ejercito Enrile, Escudero, Estrada, Gingona, Honasan, Lapid, Ligarda, Marcos, Osmeña, Pimentel, Po, Recto, Revilla, Soto, Trillanes, Villar, Senate President Drilon.
There are 15 affirmative votes, no negative votes, no abstention. Senate Bill number 2042 is hereby approved on third reading.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, may we acknowledge the presence and welcome to the Senate graduate students of College of Public Affairs and Development, UP Los Baños, headed by Attorney Damsel Torres Cortez, Assistant Professor. May we ask them to rise to be recognized?
We recognize the presence of the graduate students of the College of Public Affairs and Development, UP Los Baños, led by Assistant Professor Cortez. Welcome to the Senate.
Sir President, we also have faculty from Mapulang Lupa National High School, Valenzuela City, headed by the principal, Mr. Eddie A. Aliarte. May I ask them to rise also and be recognized?
We welcome the faculty of Mapulang Lupa National High School, Valenzuela City, led by Mr. Eddie Alarte. Welcome to the Senate.
Sir President, we have the Department of Social Development Services, College of Human Ecology, students from UP Los Baños, headed by Professor Mark Felizar. May we ask them to rise to be recognized?
We welcome and make of record the presence of the students from the Department of Social Development Services, College of Human Ecology from UP Los Baños. Welcome to the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President. We also have students from Arellano University, headed by Professor Francis Louis Mendoza. May we ask them to rise to be recognized?
We welcome the students from Arellano University, headed by, with their advisor, Professor Francis Louis Mendoza. Welcome to the Senate. Thank you.
Sir President, I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
The Secretary will read the reference of business.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 24 September 2014, it approved the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 3575 and Senate Bill number 2272, both entitled An Act Strengthening the Allied Interface between Technical Vocational Education and Training and Higher Education.
To the archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 24 September 2014, it approved the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 4553, an act expanding access to educational services by institutionalizing open distance learning and higher education and appropriating funds therefore, and Senate Bill number 2274, an act to expand access to education through open learning and distance education in tertiary levels of education, appropriating funds therefore and for other purposes.
To the archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 24 September 2014, it approved the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 4860, an act providing scholarship grants to top graduates of all public high schools enrolling for their first year in state universities and colleges, and appropriating funds therefore, and Senate Bill number 2275, an act mandating all state colleges and universities to annually confer automatic admission and provide scholarship grants to the top 10 public high school students of their graduating class and allocate funds therefore.
To the archives.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 26 September 2014, it passed the following House bills in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate. House Bill number 458, an act amending sections 10, 11, 22, and 24 of Republic Act number 776, otherwise known as the Civil Aeronautics Act of the Philippines as amended.
Public services.
4926, an act providing for an online network establishment policy for the Philippines.
Public services, local government, ways and means.
4963, an act creating a local housing board in every city and in every first to third district third-class municipality, providing for its powers and defining its duties and functions.
Urban planning, housing, and resettlement, local government.
And House Bill number 4970, an act increasing the ceiling for the total exclusion from gross income of 13th month pay and other benefits to 70,000 pesos, amending for the purpose Section 32B 7E of the National Internal Revenue Code of 1997 as amended.
Ways and means.
Bill on first reading, Senate Bill number 2425, an act strengthening the office of the Ombudsman through the further professionalization, improvement of skills, and augmenting the living conditions of its employees, amending for the purpose Republic Act number 6770, otherwise known as the Ombudsman Act of 1989 for other purposes, by Senator Grace Poe.
Justice and human rights, civil service, government organization, finance.
Resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution number 935, resolution directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group Abu Sayyaf have been targeting government workers and Sulu for their kidnap for ransom activities introduced by Senator Defensor Santiago.
National defense and security, public order, and dangerous drugs.
936, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the reported need to educate Filipinos on deadly diseases from other countries, such as MERS-CoV, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Health and demography.
937, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that the government plans to import 1.2 million metric tons of rice, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Agriculture and food, trade, commerce, and entrepreneurship.
938, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that poisonous shellfish from Masbate and Western Samar are unsafe for consumption according to the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Agriculture and food, health and demography.
939, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the report that some 200 Muslim militants from Mindanao joining Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
National defense and security.
940, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation, the Commission on Audit report that the National Dairy Authority's Bohol Dairy Farm project is still unfinished, despite allocating 162 million from the Malampaya Fund in 2009, by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Agriculture and food.
941, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry in aid of legislation on the recent COA audit report that due to inadequate planning, the Office of Civil Defense only utilized a minimal amount of the total available Quick Response Fund for CY 2013 for Typhoon Yolanda that deprived the disaster/calamity victims of their basic subsistence needs by Senator Defensor Santiago.
National Defense and Security.
942, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the reported need to review policies concerning port storage and congestion in the Philippines by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship, Economic Affairs, Ways and Means.
943, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the recent COA audit report that the Accounting Office of State Universities and Colleges should exercise diligence and reconciling records to address possible errors and should exert more effort in locating the source and noted discrepancies in the records to avoid unliquidated accounts amounting to millions of pesos, as well as other problems arising from accounting lapses by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Education, Arts and Culture.
944, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the reported transport study conducted with Japan International Cooperation Agency that shows an increase in the cost of traffic in Metro Manila from 2.4 billion pesos to 6 billion pesos a day if there is no intervention by 2030 by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Public Works and Public Services.
945, directing the Committee on Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development to conduct a review of the social pension provision of Republic Act No. 9994, otherwise known as the Expanded Senior Citizens Act of 2010, with the end in view of uplifting the welfare of the Filipino senior citizens by Senator Cayetano P.
Social Justice, Welfare, Rural Development.
946, directing the proper Senate committee to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the current emergency response system of all jails and prisons with the end in view of legislating a comprehensive jail and prison emergency preparedness and response mechanism by Senator Lapid.
Justice and Human Rights.
947, directing the Committee on Women, Family Relations, and Gender Equality and other proper Senate committees to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on existing mechanisms to promote protections of women and advance gender equality in consumer goods and services, with the end in view of legislating measures to promote the same by Senator Lapid.
Women, Family Relations and Gender Equality, Trade, Commerce and Entrepreneurship.
948, directing the Senate Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development and other appropriate Senate committees to conduct an inquiry and aid of legislation on the report that minimum wage worsens unemployment with the objective of amending labor laws that worsen unemployment but ensuring that workers are still protected by Senator Lapid.
Labor, Employment, Human Resource Development, Ways and Means.
949, expressing the sense of the Senate that the Secretary of Interior and Local Government should arrange for heightened and fully armed 24-hour BIP police protection in favor of COA Commissioner Heidi Mendoza after her testimony before the subcommittee of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee delivered on 2 October 2014 by Senator Defensor Santiago.
Committee on Rules.
Committee reports. Committee report number 80 submitted by the Committee on Finance on Senate Bill numbers 844 and 1070, introduced by Senators Joseph Victor Ejercito and Ejercito Estrada, both entitled An Act Creating a People's Fund, earmarking all proceeds from the value-added tax to the said fund for the exclusive allocation to the education and health needs of our people, amending for this purpose the National Internal Revenue Code as amended, recommending that it be archived.
To the archives.
Committee report number 81 prepared and submitted by the Committees on Cultural Communities and Finance on Senate Bill number 2426, with Senator Ligarda as author thereof, entitled An Act to Include Ethnic Origin in the National Survey conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority, recommending its approval in substitution of Senate Bill number 534, sponsor Senator Ligarda.
To the calendar for ordinary business. The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, as an administrative matter, for the information of our colleagues, we wish to acknowledge receipt by the Chamber of a letter dated October 16, 2014, from the Honorable Senator Miriam Defensor Santiago, informing us on the state of her lung cancer in relation to her duties, in relation to her Senate duties, and which also stated, among other things, that while she is not yet physically fit to attend plenary sessions, she has managed to discharge her duties as chair of certain Senate committees. She also filed bills and resolutions on weekly basis and attended to speaking invitations. She is requesting that those activities be credited as official discharge of her Senate duties. I move that her letter be read into the journal of today's session, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, the letter of Senator Santiago dated 16 October 2014 be recorded in today's journal of the session.
Mr. President, on August 13, the Senate in plenary approved the primary referral of Senate Bill number 901 to the Committee on Education, Arts, and Culture, while secondary referral was made to the Committee on National Defense and Security. This is SBN 901 is entitled An Act Declaring the Last Full Week of August as National Military Appreciation Week. Sir President, with consent of the body, I move that we switch the primary and secondary referral so that upon approval of my motion, the primary referral of Senate Bill number 901 shall be the Committee of National Defense and Security, and secondarily, the committee referral shall be to the Committee of Education, Arts, and Culture. I so move, Mr. President.
Is that in accordance with the jurisdiction of the Committee on National Defense? Sir, for the record.
With the consent of the two chairpersons, Mr. President, and considering that the main topic really is the appreciation of the military, so I think the Committee on National Defense will be able to justify why we will have a whole week and why on these dates, Mr. President.
If the view of the Rules Committee headed by the Majority Leader is that this is in accordance with the jurisdiction of the Committee on National Defense, any objection? Hearing none.
Thank you. Mr. President, I was informed by the chairperson and the sponsor of Senate Bill number 2282 under Committee Report number 56, the Fair Competition Act, that instead of interpellation on the floor, he and some of the members who have questions will be working out some of the details of the bill in their offices today. So we will not be taking this up today. And also, the same, Mr. President, with the Senate Bill number 2210 under Committee Report number 24, Poverty Reduction Through Social Entrepreneurship Program. Although no member has registered for the interpellation, many members have expressed concerns regarding certain provisions, and the chair and sponsor would like to consult these members before either proceeding with the period of interpellation or before moving to close that period and going to the period of amendments, Mr. Chair. So we will be having this tomorrow or Wednesday, Mr. Chair.
Duly
Mr.
noted,
President.
the chair takes note that the Senate Bill 2282 is under the period of individual amendments. It is the understanding of the chair, therefore, that to save time, the matter of the amendments will be discussed off the session, and that by tomorrow or Wednesday, the amendments that are acceptable to the sponsor will be made of record in our session in order that it can be incorporated in the bill that will presumably approve on third reading at the appropriate time. Is that a correct understanding?
That's correct, Mr. President.
All right.
Mr. President, may I also put it on record and inform our colleagues that our monthly Senate and House leadership meeting will be conducted tomorrow. And although we are pushing priority bills of the Palace, of the Senate, and the House, they are free to inform us of some matters that they wish that we take up in the meeting. Representing the minority will be the acting minority leader, Senator Soto, and the majority will be headed by the Senate President. No? And both houses have decided to do this monthly in order to be able to shepherd the bills more efficiently, Mr. President. Just for the record.
Noted.
Mr. President, may I ask for a minute suspension?
Suspended for 1 minute. Session is resumed.
Mr. President, I move that we designate Senator Angara and Senator Marcos as members of the Legislative Oversight Committee on Visiting Forces Agreement to represent the majority in the Senate, Mr. President.
Any objection? Hearing none, Senator Angara and Senator Marcos are so designated as members of the Oversight Committee as moved by the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Tuesday, October 21, 2014.
Session is adjourned until Tuesday, October 21, 2014 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.